You're listening to Rikki and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
Let's wing this sucker.
Let's wing this. We don't know what we're doing. Thanks for being here, guys.
This is episode 9, by the way.
Oh, we looked that up. Wow. We're almost in double digits.
I know. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
So thank you to anyone who has followed us through this journey. To be honest with you, I don't mean to dig on the audience, but I would be excited about having this conversation, even if no one was listening. So that's just a testament to how knowledgeable you are and how much your friendship means to me. So today's episode is really exciting. I don't know why I'm pumped up about this episode, but I actually am, because today we are going to talk about what we believe any relationship needs to be healthy, what needs to be present for a relationship to be healthy.
And what some unhealthy needs are, which is a question that I get all the time.
And I am fascinated by what the unhealthy needs that you dug up. So let's get into them.
Okay, cool. So
we're going to start with the first one.
Yeah, let's start with these unhealthy needs. So I think I want to start off by saying that every single one of these, somebody might hear and be like, duh, of course that's unhealthy. But I think you might be surprised to find that you do some of these. Because I was reading this thinking, duh, of course that's unhealthy. But then I was like, ooh, actually, I do that sometimes. So try not to breeze over this. Like, really try to apply this to yourself. We've got 6 bullet points here. And the first one is control. If your tendency and need is something that's controlling your partner, I mean, I hate to be Captain Obvious here, but that's really unhealthy. We usually don't realize when we're trying to control our partner. I find a lot of the things that I do that I think, it's like if I think I'm trying to help him, or like my intentions are really good, but really I'm trying to change his behavior so that I feel safer. Those are controlling impulses, not a healthy need. It can also lead to a really bad power imbalance and a lack of trust. Your partner's going to feel it when you're trying to control them. That drives a wedge between you. So some of these things that we think are needs of ours are actually just ways that we're trying to control our partners. Have you experienced that, Jimmy? I mean, is that...
I've become more aware of the ways that I mean, you've said this before, and I know we've mentioned it before, but a lot of anxious attachers, because obviously we have to bring anxious attachment into this.
Every time, yep.
Even if you're wherever you are on the spectrum, but oftentimes we don't realize that some of that passive aggressiveness or some of that protest behavior, some of that is a form of controlling.
Absolutely, it is. I find too that sometimes it's in my desire to make my partner better. That can be very controlling stuff that I don't realize is controlling.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Can I read you a quote?
Please do. Yeah.
This. I had written this down and I didn't know where to fit this in, so apparently it's right now. I'm going to give away one of the healthy needs real quick.
Okay.
And that's acceptance. And that sounds silly. Of course, acceptance is something that, a relationship needs. We need to accept each other. But it's also a very confusing topic because obviously we should all be growing. I mean, I didn't really plan on talking about that as a need, but we really should be growing in our emotional maturity and self-awareness. And and it's very difficult in a relationship to just like accept your partner. Because
it's so
sometimes people could misconstrue that as like, well, what does that mean? Like never complain? Because if I complain about something, does that mean that I'm not accepting them? Yeah. And I would say, no, you absolutely have the right to complain. We should have a safe place where we can complain. Like, hey, I just don't when you do X, Y, and Z, like it makes me feel it makes me feel neglected, or it makes me feel unappreciated, or we should have a right to complain. And that doesn't mean we're not accepting our partner. So do you have anything to add before I read the quote? Because I know it gets confusing.
Oh, no, no, you're doing great. I think it can be really tough to, what am I going to say on this? When you talk about, we ask, does that mean I can't complain about anything? I want to add that in a healthy relationship, we want to hear from our partner if something's bothering them.
Yes.
So Jimmy and I would never advocate for you to stuff those needs down. That's like the opposite of what you need to do. Yeah. So it can feel like a very fine line between accepting our partner for their limitations and, you know what I'm saying? I see you nodding.
Asking for what we need. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a
Let me
tough
read you the
line
quote,
to
and
toe.
it'll make a lot of sense. Okay. Jillian Turecki, if you don't follow her on Instagram, you should go follow her.
Oh, she's a gem.
She has an amazing podcast too. We're not being paid by her. I wish I was.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Listen to this quote. Listen to this quote. It encapsulates a lot of what we're saying. She says, quote, "When you fall in love with someone's potential instead of where they legitimately are now, you will become their coach, their therapist, their healer, and ultimately their parent. You don't want this, and they don't want it either."
No. Nope.
That's not accepting our partner. You should at least have a baseline of I accept who you are. I accept your level of emotional availability, because that's the problem that so many couples get into, including myself in the beginning, where we feel like my partner's emotionally unavailable, or God forbid, we've labeled them as a narcissist, or my partner is this. My partner is lazy. My partner neglects me. My partner's avoidant.
Yeah.
I feel like we've said this before. Once you start labeling them, you start to you're not accepting them.
No.
One, but then now you make it your main focus. I need to now change them.
Right. And you reduce them in a way. You reduce them to something less than human. And we are flawed creatures that are trying. We are too, in addition to our partners. And part of healthy love is accepting that in each other.
And it's very difficult. We understand how the pain that is associated with, we don't want to just flippantly say, if you don't like your partner, leave them. But there is some truth to who you choose to be in a relationship with. I mean...
Yeah, I like the way you put that.
Yeah. So I'm not saying go get a divorce tomorrow. I'm just saying, like...
No.
If you're dating someone and you're constantly battling yourself inside of you, this person's emotionally unavailable. I need more from this person. How can I change them? How can I control them? We need to realize that is an acceptance issue. You are not accepting this person. Yeah. Even though it's difficult, you need to move on. Okay. I would love to hear the next unhealthy.
Sure. Okay, let's go on. Number 2 is the need for constant validation. And I know a lot of people... Yeah, this is a good one, isn't it? Needing your partner to constantly validate your worth or constantly reassure you that they love you. That's like really emotionally draining. And so I know a lot of people might have thought that we would be talking about that as a healthy need. But honestly, like the need for validation and reassurance can easily go way too far. Yeah,
you're spot on with that. I didn't even think about that. But that is so true. That external validation can get real unhealthy real quick.
It sure can. And I'll throw out an example from my own life. As somebody who wanted to be with somebody who was constantly texting me, I didn't realize that was a need for constant validation. I wanted to make sure that I was on his mind 24/7. And if 2 hours went by and I didn't get a text from him, I was like, I'm not on his mind. That's scary. I never realized that was actually an unhealthy need for constant validation.
And if you're saying, that's me, I want to figure out how to manage that. Well, you're in luck, because Rikki wrote a whole book about it, The Anxious Heart's Guide.
Jimmy, thank you. There it is.
Pick it up wherever books are sold.
No, that's
actually Rikki's website, pretty sure.
my website, anxiousheartsguide.com. That's a good point. If you're somebody who's like, wow, I kind of do need constant texting, you probably would like my book. I talk about that kind of thing a lot in there. Now,
the problem is a lot of anxious hearts are probably people pleasers, and they might even have some low self-esteem. So
Absolutely.
they might default a little bit too far to when we're saying you shouldn't need constant validation from your partner. They might think, oh no, like that, maybe that's me. When in reality, maybe you're not getting healthy validation. So maybe we can talk about healthy validation. If this is a good,
That's
this
great.
might be
This
a
is
good
a
spot
good.
to
No, this
segue.
feels like a good spot for that. Take it away. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So I think validation is a need in a healthy relationship. I believe without validation. Can I just real quick, I should have said this in the beginning. Two things that I should have said in the beginning. One, when we talk about needs in a relationship, we don't mean these need to be present in perfect form. We are all working on
Great
this.
addition. Yes. Yes.
Don't ever think just because we might list out 10 to 15 needs, who knows where we go with this, but that doesn't mean, oh no, I'm not perfect at these, therefore I'm a bad partner. This is just what both of us should be striving for if we agree that these are appropriate, legitimate needs in the relationship.
Totally. I want to say too that if Jimmy and I were to write down these bullet points and rank our own relationships, I don't think that I would get a 10 out of 10 on all of them. Are they all present? Yes. Are they all 10 out of 10? We're working on that. And that makes us a completely normal and even a healthy relationship.
Yes.
You know? So thank you for adding that. That's really important.
Oh, thank you. I forgot my second point. So we're going to move on.
Oh, no.
What is validation in a healthy sense? I believe validation is a need. And this is another quote from The Secure Relationship.
Oh, great.
Julie Manano.
Yes.
This is another quote. I'm sorry. I almost took credit for her work. Oops.
Don't do that.
Okay. I didn't put it in quotation marks for some reason. So she says, each partner needs to have the confidence they will be heard and understood, so much so that without this confidence, the conversation cannot proceed productively. And I wholeheartedly agree. Part of the reason that we get into these conflicts, we get into these infinity loops, as we've seen described, where it's just like, I protest behavior, they shut down or invalidate or dismiss, I up the ante, or I throw out the divorce. All of it, there's a reason why all of it is happening. And part of where the cycle needs to be broken is validation. We should be making it a goal to validate our partner. And one of the things that validation means is it doesn't mean agreeing with all of their details, and it doesn't mean agreeing with why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. You don't have to agree with it to ascribe value to it. How you're feeling matters to me. So,
and I wanted to add, what an effective way to disrupt that cycle.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you can be right in the midst of that toxic kind of spin that couples get into. And the moment somebody takes the other one's hand and says, I hear you. I might not see it that way, but I hear what you're saying and I care that you feel that way. Man, it's hard to keep spinning down the drain when somebody makes that move.
I love the way that you described that, the taking of the hands, because so often our posture matters, and I forget to get closer to my partner and take her hand.
Yeah.
Someone said, I don't know who it is, but I won't take credit for that. I won't take credit for any more things. Someone said it's really hard to fight when you're holding hands. And I don't remember who said that, but it's true. Like it's really hard to fight when you're holding hands.
We have to be careful because it's tempting and it feels so good to just get arms crossed and frowny.
Absolutely.
And like it feels good and defensive to be like that. But somebody's got to make the first move to say like, hey, this is a hard conversation, but let's soften it up a little bit.
And I don't want to talk too much on validation, but do you know what makes validation so difficult? It's the harsh startups. So as you know, a lot of anxious hearts don't feel heard. And so their solution to I don't feel heard is I either need to talk louder, I either need to talk harsher because they're not listening. So let me get your attention with some criticism or some blame or
You know what my move was?
Yeah,
I
what's your
would come
move?
in guns blazing. Like he would just be having
Smart
a
call.
regular day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked every time. He would just be having a regular day and I would come in angry with loud, just right. Yeah, because I didn't feel heard. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. If we realize that this requires both partners. There's probably a lot of people listening that are screaming, "Yeah, I wish my partner cared about validation." Like we
Yeah.
get that. No, a lot of this
get it.
stuff doesn't work one-sided. I mean, we say that you can practice this yourself and you can implement this in your relationship, and that can have a positive change. But at the end of the day, ultimately,
Yeah.
a relationship requires two people
It
that
really
actually
does.
care about what it needs to survive. So that's what we're going to say about
And
that.
don't lose hope if your partner is not
No.
there yet. But also,
Right.
you can't wait forever either.
No.
It's delicate. Hey,
Especially
Jimmy,
if you're dating.
Especially if you're dating. Yeah. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to say this is like a great point.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I got a message the other day on Instagram. Frank exists and he's listening right now. Like
I
I
love that.
wondered if he did exist, but I've got confirmation from a couple of different wives
Yes.
that there are Franks and they're listening to this. And guys, I want to say if you're
Oh my
the
gosh.
spouse who's like only here because your spouse like asked you to listen to this,
Bravo.
bravo, standing ovation for you, dude. I am so glad that you're here.
If you're even paying attention to this, because I've gotten some messages that say, I put you guys on in the car, so he can't he's like trapped.
Oh no.
Listen, if that's you, one, I'm sorry, you'd probably be rather listening to like country music or something. But but like this is, I understand how you could feel like she's just doing this because she wants me to feel bad, but that's
Yeah.
not true. She just wants a fantastic relationship with you, and if you could just
we
pick
want
up,
that too,
you know,
for you.
we want that
we
too.
want that for Frank too.
Yeah. We another thing that we want to point out is that none of this is done from a place of condemnation. We're not saying I wasn't good at any of this stuff. I'll be the first person that says I didn't know about empathy.
Yeah.
When Emily and I were having conflicts, it was a disaster. We were just going in that infinity loop over and over and over, and nobody had the wits to say, hold on here. Hold on. What are you actually feeling? Like, I want to know what you're feeling in this moment. Nobody said that. No, we just went
my
on the same.
fights.
Yeah. So we're all in the same boat here. We're just trying to do anything we can to help your relationships. So if you have a better solution, man, you make a podcast, but like, we're just talking about what we know.
Totally. I love it. I just wanted to throw that out there because
The last thing I want to say about empathy
please.
real quick is that, validation is that it requires empathy, and empathy is really difficult. Empathy is a skill that is almost essential. It's its own needs category, but I promise I won't bore you with it. But empathy is trying to feel someone else's feelings, attempting to step into their world through their lens, not ours, because it's easy to think, I know what's going on in her head. I know what's going on in his world. It's more difficult to just stop and say, I want to know what's going on in your world. And I don't want to make assumptions. So what are you feeling?
I hate to interrupt, but I'm
No,
excited about this one. It can be so hard in the moment when we're feeling emotional to stop and consider the other person's point of view. So if you're finding it impossible to do that, one little hack is to ask, right?
Yes,
hey,
always.
I'm feeling stuck in my own head and my own emotions here. Rikki and Jimmy told me that empathy is important, though. I don't feel like I can mind read what's going on for you, but I'm curious. How are you feeling right now? What is this like for you? Yeah.
Just during your next conflict cycle, just one of you stop.
Yeah.
Especially if you've heard this together. During your next fight, just stop at one moment and say, like, hold on, Rikki and Jimmy said that we're supposed to stop in this moment. And just have like a little pause where you hold hands and you just say, you know what, you're more important than whatever fight we have.
Yep. That's
anyways,
beautiful.
The last thing I want to say, a practical application to empathy. If guys are listening or girls are listening, but my advice to any guy who's listening, because this usually pertains to women, if you take her hand and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say this. Your feelings aren't too much for me. You're not too much for me. I want to hear you. I want to listen. That usually lowers the criticism and the blame and the attacks if she feels heard, or she feels like at least you want to understand me. If it doesn't, because some women are toxic or unhealthy. Like, we're not saying that just because you do something, someone's going to respond in a healthy way. So if you're trying to be healthy and any partner is responding in an unhealthy way, that's something that you need to move up the chain to a professional. You're doing the best that you can. So you need to get in there and say, I'm doing the best I can here, professional. Like, can you help me figure out how to, I don't know what I'm trying to say other than sometimes you can't get someone to respond in a healthy way. That's part of control and manipulation. So
it's true. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is trash and they're hopeless. It doesn't mean that.
No.
I know. And I think, Jimmy, you said earlier too, that you and I used to not respond in healthy ways in fights.
Absolutely.
And look at us now. So it's possible.
It's possible. Let's move on to the next unhealthy. I've kept you for too long.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So the next one is the need to be around your partner constantly.
I love that.
Yeah, I went online and found lots of lists, and I picked my favorite ones off of here. So they called this one obsession, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe you can
either
say
way,
it that
it's
way.
still unhealthy. Yeah.
Right.
Tell me what you think about it.
Some of us think that our time needs in a relationship, our needs must have. I remember journaling that I wanted ideally to spend 6 days a week with my partner. That's an actual journal entry of mine from 2019. And now I'm like, gross, right? Like who is that girl? That's not me anymore.
Right.
And I didn't realize that that's somebody writing from within the throes of obsession who doesn't even want any free time. I think I only put that extra day in there because I didn't want to seem like a weirdo, you know? It probably would have been a 7-day-a-week thing if I wasn't self-censoring.
Now, let me ask you, do you mainly attribute that to, because I don't believe that any avoidant attacher would ever say, I want to spend 6 days. So
no, they
we're
wouldn't.
probably talking about somebody with anxious attachment. Would you say? So
yeah, you know
I guess
what?
my point is, do you think that comes from a subconscious fear that they might not be aware of distance and abandonment?
Oh, 100%. But I can flip it as well, though. An unhealthy need that an avoidant type attacher might have would be for 6 days a week of solitude.
Couldn't agree more.
Just going to throw that out there, right? And so that's why
Yep.
I didn't really like that they labeled that one obsession, because I'm just trying to say sometimes our ideas on what we need as far as time together can get very unhealthy as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah, I wrote down time, energy, and attention on one of my needs. So
awesome.
obviously all of this stuff is, reciprocal. Because obviously spending quality time together is necessary for any relationship to thrive. So a good way to assess is to talk with your partner about what their expectations are when it comes
really
to,
well said. Yes, because truly, and I almost hate it when I get messages from people asking what the right amount of time to spend together is.
Exactly.
It's different for everybody. It really is. I know couples that actually spend 6 days a week together. And while I think that that's kind of gross, they seem to really enjoy that. And there are couples who spend 2 days a week together and really enjoy it. So,
and that might be a good disclaimer that we talk about on this episode that I should have done already. Maybe that was my second point. Can I make that my second point?
Please make it right now. It's the time.
Is that these needs aren't they're not set in stone. Like we all have different needs, and they kind of rank. Like some of us really need this type of communication. Like we really need during fights, I can't have any yelling. I can't have any, we all have different needs. That's okay. You might need more quality time. That doesn't mean that you're some anxious mess. It just means I need more quality time in my relationships. And if you don't have an interest in providing that, then this might not be a compatible relationship. So it's okay for you to have needs. Let me point that out.
I love that. It feels like a good time to say too, that there is always going to be one partner who needs a little bit more of something than the other.
Oh my gosh. Spot
every
on.
time. So learning how to compromise. There's our word that we almost crossed off, right?
Yeah.
Learning how to compromise those different needs that the two partners have is a vital relationship skill.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on with that. Sorry. Was there another unhealthy need?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. This is number 4 here. Entitlement. And that's Entitlement is an unhealthy need that often is invisible to the person holding it. And by often, I mean pretty much always. If you're feeling entitled to your partner's time or validation, or I don't know, help me out here, Jimmy. Basically anything that's your partner's and not yours, right?
I think, I wrote down a lot of this is obviously going to go, but they're opposites, but I wrote down humility as what I felt like is a huge, I mean, I know it sounds weird to say as a need in a relationship, but the opposite of humility is pride. And a lot of prideful people are entitled, or they feel entitled, and that wrecks relationships every time. It
does.
I mean, pride and entitlement. And usually when there's pride, there's a sense of superiority. I've heard from a lot of spouses that I've heard from men who have now gotten better, where they say, I used to look down on my wife, and now I'm realizing that I did that. And they realize how destructive it was in their relationship. So
Oh, hey, I'll throw out too another concrete example. I used to feel entitled to my significant other's time. And if
I love
they
that.
weren't,
yes.
and I will admit that now, but back then I thought, no, that's just something that I need and they're not giving it to me. But honestly, their time is not mine to dictate,
And on the flip side, if you're in a marriage or a serious relationship, a lot of people might feel entitled to their own time. Whereas I get to do whatever I want with my, and that's not necessarily true. When you decide you want to be in a partnership, you're deciding that other person's needs or cares or values or desires, that it matters to you.
Totally.
And so you can't really have that climate of entitlement. That doesn't work. This doesn't work.
Nope. Let's not even get into entitlement about sexy time.
Let's not.
That's a whole nother episode. But truly, if there's something that you feel like your partner owes to you, sexy time or quality time or resources or any kind of thing that's actually theirs, that's tough.
Practical application, talk about it.
Talk about it. Yeah, that can be a tough one. Tough one to admit too. A really tough. I don't know that I ever admitted that to my partner, but when I recognized it, I changed it. I tried to change that attitude.
What is the quote? Did I quote this last week? But it was a fantastic quote, and I'm going to butcher it now. But it said something.
It's a good one.
Yeah, well, I can't because I don't remember it well. But it said, if you think having difficult conversations is hard, wait till you see the result of not having them, or something like that.
Yes, you can go ahead and say that every time if you want.
It's fast. I mean, that is such a good quote, because we don't realize how difficult or how much we avoid difficult conversations, and we don't realize how dangerous that is in the relationship. I mean, it is so easy to just sweep that junk under the rug. I don't want to talk about that. It's not going to go well. They're going to respond to X, Y, and Z. My needs aren't going to get met. I'm not going to get validated. So why even bring it up? And so we just stuff that junk in, and we don't realize that the negative results are going to come out. It's like shoving a balloon under the water. Like, you can do it for a little bit, but eventually that thing's exploding to the surface. And
totally. Well, let's add that, in case we weren't going to in this episode, let's add the ability to have difficult conversations.
Yes.
Let's add that as a healthy relationship
I love that.
need. Yeah. I don't know if that was on either of our lists, but it should be.
I'm sure it was. It'll come up again. All right. Hit me with another unhealthy need.
Okay. So the last two play right into anxious and avoidant attachment, which I love.
I love it.
There can be an unhealthy need for dependence, meaning you feel like you're not capable of doing anything without your partner or without their permission, or right? Like, you don't exist. You're just their puppet. That can be very unhealthy. And then the other bullet point was an unhealthy need for avoidance, which if there are any avoidant listeners, this might hit a little close to home. Sometimes we can feel the need for independence in such a way that disrupts any closeness in the relationship. So that can be, those are really tough to face, but it's possible.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't really have any that go
with that. Yeah.
completely go with that. But
Well, I guess I hear it a lot from very, very anxious attachers that they have a need for their partner to take care of them in ways that I'm like, ooh, that actually sounds a little unhealthy. And
Yep.
My very good friend, the Loving Avoidant on Instagram, will talk about a need for avoidance that can be for unhealthy reasons as well.
yeah. I did realize I actually do have something on that. I'm sorry. I wrote down a healthy need. I don't know how I didn't see this, but I wrote down a healthy need of autonomy. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Like we should not be kind of like enmeshing our life into someone else. Obviously we understand that when you're married, you know, as you know, so your lives are intertwined, obviously.
Right, exactly.
But the goal is always interdependence, not codependence. And most people don't really know what codependence is, and I am definitely not claiming to be an expert on it. But
well, my favorite little sentence to help describe codependence is,
love this.
Codependence is when I'm not okay unless you're okay. That's like a great way to think of it. It's not... I know the word pops up a lot with alcoholism and people supporting a spouse struggling with that. But codependence in a relationship is when there's no you unless that other person is there first or doing okay. Yeah. And autonomy is feeling like we can take care of ourselves on our own.
Yes.
And that's important too. Healthy levels of that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wrote down empathy is different than enmeshment. We're not responsible for someone else feeling a certain way. It's not our job to fix them. It's our job to be a safe place to help them co-regulate. And that's such an important thing. We talked about grabbing each other's hands during a conflict. We don't talk a lot about co-regulation, but I love that concept. I love that because it's not codependency, but it's also, but it's realizing that like, I care about this person so much and they're dysregulated and I want to help them.
Yeah.
Whereas like that's the healthy version of interdependence where like I want to co-regulate with this person. Sometimes it's you to them, sometimes it's them to you. It's not that's the problem. In codependency, it's almost always one-sided. You're almost always giving and over-sacrificing and doing everything you can do to kind of control this person into feeling a certain way. That's when you know the red flags should be going off in your head. Like, uh-oh, that might be me.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. If you're having trouble wrapping your brain around codependency, it's a one-sidedness that will key you in on that. My boy, Stan Tatkin, I can't call him that. He doesn't know who I am. But any book that you've ever seen.
I'm going to call him that from now on.
Do it. Yeah. My boy, Stan. Anyway, check out any of his books. But he's very into co-regulation. And
Wired for Love?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite books of all time.
I just wanted to throw out a book title so people could like...
Please do.
That one.
I think he also has Wired for Dating that people have told me is excellent, but I have not read that one yet. Sorry, Stan. He's very into The Couple Bubble, though, which sounds kind of cheesy, but he talks about how when we choose to be with someone, we should care about how our actions make them feel. And so if we're in a big fight with our partner and we're trying to think, and we're tending to think, it's not my job to make them feel better when they're all upset. It's like, if you're in a relationship, like partly it is. It's not 100% your job, but it's a small percentage.
I love that.
Yeah. And he has he's good about that.
Yeah. It's almost like the bare minimum, really. Like if your partner's upset, the bare minimum is that I care that you're upset. And we really forget that. That's how whether it's our insecure attachment or whether it's just our own dysregulation or whatever cycles we get trapped in, we almost tend to forget that it's a basic principle. John Gottman actually talks about that a lot. He says, when you're hurt, the world stops and I listen. Like,
I love that. Man, they're brilliant. I love that.
Brilliant. And then that's so true. Like how many times have we forgotten that basic principle? We would rather... Because the problem is that when somebody comes to us with a complaint, even if they voice it in the correct way without any blame or criticism, it's still, especially as men, but you know it as well since you're prone to defensiveness, we still hear whatever they're saying. We hear it as, I'm bad. You're calling me a bad partner.
Yep.
And so then you need to defend, well, I'm not a bad partner. Like, but that's not what they're arguing about. They're just sharing a feeling, or they're sharing hey, do you mind, loving me in this way? Or they're just giving you information. And so easily through our lens of shame or low self-esteem, we take it as, oh, you're calling me a bad partner. So now I either
so
need,
hard to receive that.
So hard to receive.
Ugh.
And you know what? I listed that as one of my needs. That's a need to be able to express your thoughts and feelings obviously in a respectful way.
Yes.
And also, we talk about this all the time. You have to be able to receive. You have to be able to listen. And
that takes practice.
Yeah,
it takes
so much
practice, folks. You are most likely not going to be good at that.
No.
In the beginning, you'll probably be pretty bad at it before you go.
For sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, hit me with another unhealthy need.
No, that's all. I only had the 6 bullet points. I think
we already
right
went
now,
through 6.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
we transition heavy and big time into the healthy needs. Let's get some health.
I loved your energy there, but like nobody's excited. Like
I'm excited. You
I'm
and I
excited.
are excited, and they should be excited.
I just love that segue. We are going to transition heavy into
oh my gosh, I'm an elementary school teacher, aren't I? Shoot,
I loved it.
I loved it. Guys, it's math time. Yeah, this is going to be great.
That's what it felt like, and I loved it. I loved it. It worked on somebody out there. They're like, yes.
So she's hitting Frank right now in the car. Like, this is it.
She's like, listen up, buddy.
So wait, how can
He's
I make
like,
this
I'm
more
listening,
palatable?
okay? I'm listening.
Okay, rather than, nobody's excited about healthy needs. Hey, guys, this is...
I think you did fantastic.
Really? Everybody's pumped?
It was the best you could do.
Okay, let's do this.
It's dry information. Who wants to know? Okay. Can I hit you? Can I hit you with my first big one?
I'm ready.
We already talked about communication. Obviously, communication is a huge need. It might be a mega need to where we could literally spend an hour talking about communication.
Multiple
I think we have
episodes.
episode 2. We really covered conflict. So just go back to that one. Trust. Trust is something that is any relational expert you talk to. I don't care who it is. I promise you, if you were like, hey, give me your top 10 needs for a relationship to thrive, trust will always be on the list, because trust is a sense that I can rely on you. I can depend on you. Trust, you're asking the question, whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, you're asking the question, can I rely on my partner?
Jimmy,
what's
do you have
what's the answer?
Well, I was wondering, do you have advice for the folks who are currently in a relationship with someone who they feel like, you know what, I don't really trust this person? Because that's going to be a lot of the listeners.
Yeah. So if you don't trust your partner, well, you need to acknowledge that I don't trust my partner. And now, hopefully, after this episode, you'll realize that that's actually a big deal. Like this is a big deal. This isn't
something that has to be confronted.
Yeah. And because it's so easy, especially us anxious hearts, it's easy to say, I don't trust my partner because they aren't trustworthy. And whenever you're pointing your finger at them, it's so easy, because I can just keep pointing my finger at you for months and years of this relationship, and nothing will ever change, because I'm just going to keep pointing my finger. If you would just change, if you would just become trustworthy, then I would trust you.
Yeah.
It never comes back to us of like, well, what are we doing to change the climate? Now, of course, we can't control them. We can't force them to become trustworthy, but we can realize this is a big deal. I don't trust my partner. That's a huge need in the relationship.
Can we also...
I'm going to go... Yeah.
Oh, I just thought we could ask for something concrete that could help us to trust, and try to be aware of whether or not we're raising the bar with that.
Sorry.
Too.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So I was going to say we should be speaking to a professional about that. But I love your idea of just like subtle things that we can do. Sometimes, I know that this is going to be hard to believe, but sometimes our partners, even though you told them 100 times, they don't know what you need from them. Here's my only pushback, because I know there's about our 100 listeners that are saying, no, I tell them.
Yeah,
that might be true. But I've sat in some sessions with people, and they say what they need, but they don't realize that it's vague. They don't realize. Yeah. And I wish I had a good example of this. It'd be like,
no. I can throw an example out.
Oh, please help me.
I hate to keep referring back to this, but because I think I talked about the cat box last time. Did I not? I have a cat.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I have a memory of oversharing about my
okay.
bad,
I probably cut that.
Pet ownership. Did you really? Okay.
I don't know.
So my partner is very, very clean. He's very clean and tidy, and I am less so. And sometimes he will make a request that I keep things cleaner, and that's what he says. And I was just like, as kind of a less tidy person, I don't really know what to do with that. So I'll make little efforts that I think are making things a little cleaner, but aren't actually touching the root of the problem that he's complaining about. So in his mind, he's asked about this 100 times and I'm not listening to him. And in my mind, I'm making lots of efforts and he's not appreciating it. That's what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's an ongoing thing here. So
Let me give you another example. So here's something that I believe most women want from their, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, from your man. I would say a lot of women would complain about this, and it's a legitimate complaint. They want their man to acknowledge and carry some of the mental load of the relationship or the relational burdens that that living in a home and raising kids, all that stuff. They want them to carry some of that emotional load without having to be asked. Would you agree that that's a lot of, that's at least some complaints. Okay, here's the problem with that. When we're fired up like that and we're like, I just want you to carry some of this emotional load. Like, you don't understand, yada, yada. We're not actually telling them what to do. We're complaining.
Yeah.
But we think that we're telling them, see, I'm telling them what I need. I need them to carry more of the emotional load or the emotional and physical mental load.
Oh my goodness.
But you're not actually telling them anything.
No, you're not. And to a partner who doesn't know what that looks like, you're like, I just need more quantum physics from you. That's all I need. And they're like, I don't even know where to start with that.
Did you see my video today?
No, I didn't. I should. Is that what it
You didn't see my video today?
No,
I thought you responded to it. Well, you saw my story.
Oh, I saw your story. That's the one you're talking about? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't on TikTok. I was just on the Instagram story. So.
But anyways, I made a video today about that exact thing where oftentimes one partner is saying something and the partner's just hearing gibberish. They're like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So my whole point is that let's not scream at our partners, you don't provide me with any emotional safety. That might be true. And you deserve emotional safety in this relationship. However, we need to get better at saying one or two things that our partner can do. I understand that so many partners, it feels like, no, they're neglecting me. The bar is on the floor. I get it. And they might be. But at the same time, we should still be providing them with concrete examples of what this looks like to us.
Yes.
And
as
then
a
holding
confused
them
partner. I'm the confused partner asking you, begging you, please be concrete. Because I hate breaking my partner's heart with the cat box not being to his level of cleanliness. But I really don't know what that looks like for him. Is that cleaning it 3 times a day? Is that cleaning it every day? I don't know. So he's not said that. And I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him about that because you know what? I'm going to take some of the emotional load off of his shoulders. And I'm going to say, babe, I need specificity. Tell me exactly what would scratch the itch for you there.
And you know what? I want it. I want specificity. Yes. I don't know if I can say that word like you did.
Specificity.
I want to know what this looks like to you.
Yeah.
That's love. When two partners are doing that, when they're like, because at the end of the day, you've said this before, and I'm just probably stealing this from you, but it's like, we should want to know what our partner needs to feel valued and loved. And like, if you can't get an agreement on that, if one person says something and you're like, I don't want to do that and I'm not planning on doing that relationship's not going to work. And like, you can stay together and complain for the rest of your life. But like, if you actually figured out what you need, like if we list all these needs and you're like, I need that and I need that. And and you both, only one of you cares and the other one doesn't, that relationship's just not going to work. So obviously, I believe a thriving relationship requires both people that want to work together to get each other's needs met. Okay. Did we go off the rails? Because I just wanted to
a little.
So let's go back to trust.
Healthy needs.
Really carefully. So trust is built slowly and consistently. trust is
It's
extremely
broken that way too. Just saying.
No, it's broken very quickly.
Oh, it's quickly. It can.
Yeah.
Hey, it can be broken slowly. That's the death by 1,000 cuts, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So
Yeah.
trust can be broken both ways. You're absolutely right. Trust can be broken in an instant, and trust is oftentimes broken so slowly that we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Anyways, quick tips on how to build trust with your partner is just to simply ask them, how do you feel loved and valued in this relationship? Can you give me 3 examples? You say this all the time. You say, I ask my partner, what can I do this week to make you feel appreciated and loved? And then just do those things. Do the 3 things. Consistency. That's what builds trust.
Clean the cat box, Rikki. Yes, it is. But
Quit
it's true.
talking about the cat box.
I'm sorry. I know. Is it grossing you out?
Okay.
I just want to share with people that the things that they're going to ask you to do aren't the fun things. They might be hard things.
That is such a good point. The things that they're going to tell you to do are probably not going to be the things that you're just like chomping at the bit to do.
Yeah. I hate to cook.
Plan for
I've
that.
mentioned that. Yeah. I think I've mentioned that before. I hate to cook. And one of the things that he always asks every single week are to make food and sandwiches.
Aww.
And oh my goodness. And some women are like, oh my gosh, I wish that's all it took
They're
for
like,
my
why?
man to be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm in the kitchen like staring at all the knives like, no, like why am I in here? It's the hard things sometimes that mean so much to them.
I'm not a genius by any means necessary, but you got with this person for a reason, and it's probably because you're opposites in a way.
Yeah, totally. You know he's a total chef. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let me go over the next need because I need to move quickly because I don't want to waste anyone's time. I believe a need, can I just say real quick, I think this was my actual second point, is that a lot of men especially, they push back. Any man that's actually listening to this, you got trapped in the car. This is the only reason that you'd be hearing me right now. A lot of people think that having needs, that it's unhealthy to have needs. Does that make sense? Like I've heard from a lot of men like, yeah. So I just want to really quickly make the point. When I talk about needs in a relationship, because a lot of people are so independently focused that they're like, you shouldn't need your partner at all. Like this is unhealthy. Here's my healthy lens to look through with needs. If I asked you, hey, imagine you were in a relationship. If I asked a guy and she disrespected you, she had no desire to serve you in the areas where you felt loved and valued. She wasn't honest with you at all. Do you think that relationship would work? And you would say, no, I would never be in a relationship with someone like that. Okay, right. So what you just discovered is some needs. You're saying you need honesty. Is that what you're saying? No, I'm not saying, no, I don't need things. Well, yes, you do, because you wouldn't be in a relationship with someone that didn't have certain characteristics to the relationship.
Totally.
So when I talk about respect, we need to respect each other in a relationship. That's a need for a relationship to actually thrive. So anyways, what do you think of when I say respect?
I wanted to add that I'm imagining trying to be in a partnership with someone who has no needs. And that's like the grossest thing I can possibly imagine. Like if you imagine somebody who's just a mirror, just whatever you want, yes, I will do that. That's not a person. That's a robot, you know?
Yeah.
We should want our partner to have needs, even if it's tough stuff. We want them
the reason that you think that you don't have needs is because you're terrified of closeness. You're terrified to actually be close to somebody because you're afraid they're going to hurt you. And so you've chosen, or you've made yourself believe that having needs is bad because
spells doom.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Right. But I think it's she talks about desire a lot. I think she's French. Man, I'm just spacing on her name, but she talks about I'm going to get it in a second. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
You're not talking about Esther Perel, are you?
Yes, Esther Perel.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm here for you. I know
you know what I'm talking about, Jimmy, even if no one else does. Esther Perel talks about having individual needs and desires as being the thing that sparks desire in our partner for us. If you're just a robotic mirror that does exactly what they want you to, there's no desire or spark happening between you two.
I love that.
So it can be scary to assert the things that we want and need, but it's also the kind of thing that makes our partner very sexy and appealing.
And can we just push back on, not push back, can we just emphasize what you just said right there? Part of this is very scary. Getting to the point where you can express your needs, there's a lot of people pleasers listening.
Yeah.
It is extremely difficult to get to the point. If you're fighting that in yourself right now, if there's a little battle going on inside of you where you're like, where part of you is like, yeah, I want to stand up and talk about my needs. And the other part of you is like, don't do that. Like that's going to end badly. That's something you need to pay attention to because like a healthy relationship demands that people both partners do that.
It does.
But it's scary. It's scary is my point.
Scary. Just yesterday, my partner asked me, hey, Rikki, where would you like to go
doesn't
to
talk to you like
tonight?
that.
No, he did, because he knew how horrible this would be for me. He's a smile.
Oh, because he's playing on you, because he knows how difficult this decision making is for you.
Yeah, he was like, where would you like to go to eat tonight?
And you were like, short circuit.
Everything in my being was like, like, you know,
what are you in the mood for, dear?
Exactly. And I'm not supposed to do that. He genuinely wanted to know where I wanted to eat, but everything in my people pleaser programming was like, figure out what he wants to eat, make that suggestion. I'm years in, and I'm still fighting. And
so people need to know this is always going to be a somewhat of a fight. It gets easier, but it is somewhat of a fight.
It could be forever work for some of it.
You sound so defeated. I love it. You're like, I don't know.
I did. I spit it out though. I did.
Oh, good.
I did. I don't know how I did it, but I figured it out. I was like, Indian food. I got there though. And and it was
I love
great,
that so much. And he was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And he's not
like,
always like, okay, cool. Sometimes I've had to journal. I spit out what I truly wanted and needed, and he was not able to do that. And hey, the world didn't end. Everything was okay.
Yes. And that doesn't mean that we necessarily there are some needs in Rikki's journey of her relationship where she would have put her foot down and say, she talks about this one story where she's like, if this need couldn't have been met, then I would have had to walk away. So you have to decide what those needs. There are some needs where we can compromise on and figure out. There are other needs where it's like, this isn't going to work.
Yes.
So you have to decide that. That's not
totally for folks wanting some concrete examples too. If he didn't feel like Indian food that night, no big deal. I can handle that. If he only wants to hang out one day a week, that's a problem for me. And we have to get a grip with ourselves on what's
if he doesn't text me back, except if it takes 2 days to get a response.
Or if he calls me needy for wanting that. That's not going to.
Now we're going into some interesting boundaries of like what are we okay with people saying to us, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, keep going with the healthy needs.
Can I go back to respect real quick? Because respect is so huge. This almost kind of coincides with trust. We need to actually dig down deep. Do we trust our partner? I asked you before to answer that question for yourself, but I also want to ask you, do we respect our partner? Because I believe respect is a need. And if you don't respect your partner, that's something that needs to be addressed.
As a woman, I want to hear more about that because I think we have a predominantly female listenership. And you've talked a lot and in a lot of your videos about how respect is such a paramount male need. And paramount male need. You can edit that out if I'm saying
I know
words
what you meant.
You know what I meant. And I gotta say that's not something that women we just inherently know how to do.
You know what I think is interesting about the word? I think there's a connotation attached to it in each person's mind, because genuinely, when I think of respect, I'm thinking about it from how can I respect my female partner? So it's interesting that you would, So when I think about respect, I think about a mutual respect. So let me just throw out some things that are reminded of when we respect someone, we don't dismiss them. We don't dismiss their concerns, male or female. We don't look down upon them. We don't. We give them the benefit of the doubt. That's really hard. But when you respect someone, you give that person the benefit of the doubt, don't you? Think about somebody you respect, not your partner. Think about someone think about someone you actually respect. If that person makes a mistake, Do you
Yeah.
immediately condemn them? Do you
No.
immediately point it out? Do you immediately put your finger in their face? Or do you give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt? Do you give them a
Yeah.
little grace? Do you talk to them first? Like, hey, what happened here?
Yes.
What
Instead
happened
of
here?
assuming. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when I talk about respect, I'm talking about all of that stuff. I wrote down, we defer to them when possible.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down, we see them through a positive lens. Gottman talks about this all the time, and it really bugged me, actually. Because he
Really?
talked about, I just get bugged. Whenever I read about healthy relationships, I'm
You're
like, why can't my
triggered?
relationship be
Yeah.
like that? Yeah.
Okay.
So I just see all the things that I do wrong. I'm like, crap, I do that too. So he's like, it's so important that you view your spouse through a positive lens. And that's so true. Like when something happens, there's like two sides, and which side do you go on? Do you like immediately assume, like you just said, do you assume and create labels? And well, of course they did that because they're a lazy piece of garbage. Or of course they did that because they're an avoidant narcissist.
Right.
Like, or do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Are we in the category of respect? I'm respecting them. Anyways,
let's throw some sentences out on what it would look like to give someone the benefit of the doubt too. Maybe
I would love that.
Maybe they're really tired, right? Maybe
Yeah.
they had a really long day. Maybe
Now-
and these aren't reasons that they can get away with murder. But
Thank you.
but it's
because there's a fine line between creating a excuses for somebody, like we talked about in codependency, where you're always
Totally.
you're not holding them accountable. This is not about not holding someone accountable.
This is not that.
Nope.
It's just instead of immediately in my mind saying it's because my partner's a jerk, I try to say maybe he's had a really long day and I should take that into account.
That doesn't mean he can talk to me however he wants. That doesn't mean that a hard conversation is still not need to be happen. It just means it matters how you view them. How you view your partner matters.
Yeah.
Here's what I wrote down from a woman to a man, because you asked that question, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I believe that a lot of men crave respect, and I don't believe 99% of us are worthy of respect.
Oh.
So like, I mean, well, that's not true. Everybody's worthy of respect in a sense, but
come on now.
but what I mean is, like, we don't always deserve for you to look at us through a positive lens, is all I'm saying. Like, it's a choice that you have to make in a relationship. Like, I'm going to choose to look through a positive lens. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to let me push back just a little bit on that. Sometimes my partner says things to me that are disrespectful because he's a human, and that's how it goes. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve my respect. I'm going to throw that out there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes,
like,
that's so true.
I recognize that sometimes he messes up in the same way that I mess up sometimes. And nothing that he does, no matter how bad, entitles me to treat him disrespectfully in return.
I could not have said that better. That was so beautiful.
You're welcome. I didn't. That was just off the top of my head. It's just I say that as someone who used to feel like sometimes I didn't deserve respect. You know, I was like, well, of course I don't deserve respect. I did this and this and this. Ideally, there's no good reason to disrespect.
Let me hit you with a little bit of what you already know. So avoidant, there's a lot of avoidant men not listening, but there's a lot of.
Cut that. Yeah, no, you're fine.
I'm sorry, Frank. If you're still trapped in that car. Listen, there's a lot of avoidant. He's like, what the heck is an avoidant?
Right.
So there's a lot of avoidant men, and they have a lot of shame. They were taught from an early age that mistakes equal failure. Yeah. They were taught you're not good enough. Mm-hmm. And when they get into conflicts with any anxious hearts listening, when they get into conflicts with you, one thing that needs to be on the tip top of your brain when you're in the middle of that conflict and you're not thinking clearly is, do they feel like I'm calling them a failure? Do they feel like I am telling them they're not good enough? Because that shouldn't be what's happening.
I'm really glad you said that, though.
It shouldn't be what,
That's the number one worry in an avoidant heart's brain.
Yes. So if you truly care about your avoidance heart, I would be extra sensitive to, do you feel like I'm calling you a failure here? Yeah. Do you feel like I'm calling you not good enough? Because that's not what I want to happen here. So we can start this whole thing over if that's what's being triggered in you.
Yeah. I look so sad because I realized that just yesterday I absolutely said something that for sure my partner construed as, you are not good enough. And I'm gonna address that. because
I love that. And that's
Thank you.
that's what love, you show such good examples of what love does. So here's what I wrote down. Because you just asked a great question of like, okay, so I asked my man what he thinks are needs in a relationship, and he mentioned respect. A lot of men will mention respect.
Yep.
It's usually sex and respect. That's usually the two big ones that you're going to get.
And food.
Oh yeah, and food. Sorry.
Don't forget that.
So,
don't forget the sandwiches, Jimmy.
So in that situation where it's like, okay, fine, how do I show him respect? Here's one thing that is when's the last time you said this to him? Especially during a conflict. Here's just a climate. You don't have to say the exact words, but just with your tone, body language, whatever. I believe in you. You're a good partner.
Oh, I've said that.
I mean,
I've never said the "I believe in you" though. Wow.
But those are just important. Here's a good one. This is a terrible fear of the avoidant. No one would say these exact words, just the context. You get it right most of the time. Like, I know that sounds stupid.
I've said that. I've said that.
But I'm saying it sounds stupid to say like that. I'm just saying like your partner should feel like you believe in them. Your partner should feel like you believe that they get it right most of the time. Because imagine if they didn't. Right. That is where a lot of problems.
Oh, totally. You got to be careful though, because I definitely said you get it right most of the time, but I said it in a way that was mean
That's
and
why
highlighting the other part.
The other times. Yeah.
And I'm regretting that a lot right now.
No, you're absolutely right. There is. That's why I said not exactly those words, just the context.
Yeah, there's a mean way to say that one for sure. I did.
Okay, can we move on because I feel like I'm rambling?
I know.
Okay.
No, it's all right.
Okay, another healthy need is honesty. We talked about it before. I believe honesty is so crucial in a relationship. We talked about the difficult conversations. Are you able to be honest with how you're feeling, and are you inviting and encouraging honesty from your partner as well? I believe those both need to be present in both partners. Not perfectly, just directionally, just intentionally. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, one big way that we can help to encourage honesty is by looking at our reactions. That's so hard. One way that I was encouraging dishonesty in my partner was by being very volatile in the ways that I would react to things. When he would come to me and admit something that he'd done that he knew I would not be happy about, I would fly off the chain. I would accuse him, even though really wow, it must have been really hard for him to come to me with that. And I didn't reward him for that. I punished him for it. So,
gosh, that is so amazing the way that, you're right. We can discourage our partner from being honest in a variety of ways.
Yeah, unintentionally, but I was for sure.
A lot of times unintentionally. One of the other ways we talked about invalidation, that discourages honesty. We talked about dismissiveness, defensiveness, all those things, making excuses. Anytime that we've ever gotten into that conflict cycle and we've been like, well, you do that too. Or I'm not going to take any accountability here. You do that. No, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Anytime anybody's called you crazy, that just obviously discourages honesty. Like,
it does for sure.
You're never going to want to be vulnerable with someone where you don't feel like this is I don't feel safe to bring up a complaint to you. That relationship is always going to flounder, in my opinion. So
I have a magic sentence if you're ready for
encouraging
so honesty. This can help you kind of mitigate those big reactions too. Thank you for telling me this. Right there. It's a magical sentence because
validating.
Totally. You can thank them for telling you something and still feel very hurt by it. Yeah. You can't. Thank you for telling me that. That's hard for me to hear, but I really appreciate you coming to me with that because honesty is so important.
Oh, I love that so much.
So there's
create such a climate of I safety. I want to know what's going on in your world. I love that. Yep. Can I hit you with a? I wrote down shared values, and when I was thinking about that, I thought about people, especially when it comes to kids. I've heard of so many relationships where they're dating and then they get married, and there's huge fights about kids, and it's
you're saying whether or not to have them.
Whether or not to have them, and they talked about it in the beginning, but then one person just changed their mind randomly or something like that.
Which is okay, unfortunately.
Which is okay, but we have to remember that that these things are going to cause massive issues.
Absolutely.
Like if you said, yes, I want kids, and then you get married and you're like, I don't want kids anymore. It's like, that's going to cause huge issues in the relationship.
Yeah.
So shared values is huge. I mean, when it comes to...
I want to say too, they don't all have to be the same, because I run into a lot of people who will not settle for somebody who doesn't have every single one of the same values.
That's true.
So that can be tough, I think.
But that's where your own personal boundaries come into play. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But another aspect would be like how this dating / eventual marriage thing is going to play out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't get on the same page with at all about whether this is even we're 9 months in and he doesn't even want to define the relationship as like a committed relationship.
Yeah.
That might be something, that's what I'm talking about, where it's like we have a shared understanding here of like, we're both moving in the same direction. If you want the relationship defined, if you're in a situationship and you're like, I want out of this and they don't, then you don't have a mutual understanding.
Yeah,
of
that's a value that's definitely not shared and going to cause trouble. I think that's a great addition. I'm glad you put that one in there.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think you wouldn't see that one on many lists, but having shared values about the really important things like future with children, ideas on marriage,
and religion. Like, are we going to go to church when we?
If you have very strong beliefs about diet and things that you will and won't eat, and your partner won't respect that. It
all plays. Your time. How much time do you want? Do you plan on? Or do you have a strict regimen? Like, well, I go to the gym during this time, and then I go to this, and I do that, and then it's like, how is that going to play into our relationship? You have to understand all that stuff.
Introversion and extroversion can be tough too. Some people really value the time with all the people, and some people really value their time spent alone, and those two people date, and then it just
every time,
and it gets rough sometimes.
It does.
Not naming any names.
Let me hit you with another. I'm gonna put two in one.
Okay.
Affection and playfulness. So I think that those things are needs to a lot of people. Maybe not to everybody, but to a lot of people.
And big ones to a lot of people. I did a poll today on my account asking people what their biggest struggle with their relationship was right now, and one of the options in the poll was not getting enough affection, and it won by a landslide. So I know, there's a lot of people whose affection needs are not being met. And I just made a video about how important I thought non-sexual affection is in your relationship. Oh, good. Yeah. So what did I write down? Find out what it means to your partner and show it. It doesn't matter if you aren't affectionate. If you're in a partnership, especially a marriage, this sounds harsh, but I think we can't just think about us. I mean, it's not just about you. That doesn't sound harsh. That's very reasonable. It's difficult, but I used to think of myself as the most affectionate partner until I realized that I didn't care about their special brand of affection that they wanted. So that partner would have viewed me as very unaffectionate. And I didn't think that. I was throwing loving words out 24/7, but without those dang sandwiches that I hate to make, right? They saw me as withholding, right? I love that. Yeah. That goes back to the love languages. People hate love languages, but I don't think they should. It's a great way we just use them as like, we need to speak our partner's language. Yeah. That's all it is. Like our partner has a language of how they feel loved and valued, and we should just want to speak that. And for sure, there's more than 5. For sure, there's more than 5. Oh, obviously. Absolutely. You ask your partner what speaks to them, and you do that. Yes. Yeah. And you do that thing. That's what love looks like. There's always, anytime you mention love, there's always a sacrificial and selfless element to it. Now, that's scary because a lot of people are being neglected. But when we talk about thriving, healthy relationships, when Gottman writes about thriving, healthy relationships, there's always an element where the goal is that we're both being selfless. Yeah. It's always the goal. So that's interdependence. Right. Yes. Anyways, let me throw out another Gottman quote, and this is going to floor you. This is from your favorite book, 8 Dates. Yours also. We both love that book. Yeah, I bet Julie wrote this one. She said,
they said, playfulness is as necessary a quality as fidelity to keep a relationship thriving.
Is she more playful than him? Is that why you think
I don't
she's
remember.
the one who wrote
I
that?
don't, it just feels like, I don't know. It just felt like a Julie. So what did I write down I wrote down, so just my own feelings. When my wife is playful with me, and this includes sexually playful flirting and prioritizing that, because there's a lot of times where we've talked about where the desires are mismatched, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But when she's playful with me, I feel desired and I feel valued and I feel attractive and I feel wanted.
Yeah, that's good for me to hear. I struggle with that one. I'm not a playful person, so that's hard for me, but it's good to hear that.
And there are other ways that she can do that, but playfulness is a big one for me. When she's playful with me, that's just one of the big ways that it makes me feel wanted and desired.
I would wonder, I don't have the statistics on this, but I would think that that's probably...
We can make them up.
Wait, sure. Can we? I don't...
I do it.
I could do a poll. I could do a poll on my page. You could too if you wanted. I would guess that playfulness is probably one of those things that men respond to really well and need a lot.
I think you're spot on. And there's a lot of listeners that say, well, boy, I would love to be more playful with him if I didn't feel so neglected. You know what I mean? And so I totally understand that.
I just never hear that one from women. Just saying. I never hear women saying, I wish he would be more playful, but I hear it a lot from men. I do think that would be a great way to get through to your man. I said this on the last episode, I think, but I mean, I don't think, just to start a conversation with him, I don't think it would be bad to say, how important is sexual playfulness to you? How important is that? And regular playfulness too. Just say,
both of those things.
My partner's a jokester. He loves pranks. He loves
that's
being
so
silly.
True.
So
I asked women when their man is most attractive to them, and one of the big ones is when he's joking around,
Really?
And that's so true.
Oh,
when
that's
sweet. When we lose that, when we're dating and we fall in love with their humor and stuff like that, when we lose that just because of the stress of life and kids and all this work and money, and when we lose our playfulness, when we lose our joking around with each other, man, we lose something special in the relationship. And we should really be both cognizant of how can we get this back? So here's some practical tips,
Please.
I'm not going to blow your mind. I'm not going to blow your mind because these are pretty basic. You could figure these out on your own, but you should be spending some quality time together, away from the stress. Go somewhere where you're not. Go somewhere where you're not thinking about the kids. Go somewhere where you're not thinking about work. Go somewhere where you can just be the two of you. Try to get back. I know it's very difficult and it takes some time, but if you do it consistently, you can get back in that routine together where it's this is just us time. Play a board game. Go somewhere.
Yes. This isn't
even if
a Friday night out at a restaurant. This is we have a place here where you can throw axes. We have
Yes.
We have escape rooms.
I was just going to say escape do something together, and that it's hard to find babysitters, but it's necessary. It's necessary. You have to get out together because that quality time, it matters a ton.
In one of your videos, you said why would I prioritize the most important relationship in my life? And it was I love that. But that's one of the things. If you've got an extra $100 to spend on new shoes or whatever it is then you've got an extra $100 to spend on a babysitter and spend time with your partner.
Your relationship is the most. I mean, the more I learn about this stuff, the more I learn. Frank, if you're still listening, and this goes for women too. I'm not just talking to men.
Right.
Your relationship is so important, especially if it's a long-term. I mean, obviously this differs if you're married or if you're dating for 3 months, but especially if you're married, I am hardcore when you make that decision to get married. This relationship is paramount. Your relationship, and not just that. People do not realize, and I didn't realize it. I'm the first one that didn't realize it. You are being the world, or just the systems of the world is trying to drag you down. Busyness. Nobody goes into marriage and thinks I'm probably going to get super busy with work and we're going to end up hating each other. I'm just saying the systems of this world are pulling, they're like trying to get to your marriage, like busyness and laziness and bills, money is going to, everything is going to come between you and your marriage. You have to be intentional, both of you, at defending it and protecting it. Yeah, you do. You find me, almost every divorce, if I went in and was like, who's fighting for this marriage really? And I listed like what that means. It's at least, it's either zero or one of them. It's rarely both of them.
It's not two. Yeah, it's not two.
It's not two.
Everything that I read as far as couples counseling goes, they say that if you've got two people who are both fighting, even if they're like fighting for the partnership, even if they're really bad at it, you're probably going to be okay. That's for sure. That was so comforting to hear. You don't have to be good at fighting for it, but if both people are, you've got a good shot.
You do, because we can teach you how to fight in the right way, and you just implement that even on a basic level. You'll be fine.
That's an upward spiral instead of a downward one. You know.
Yes. Can I throw out another need? I know we're almost done. I promise. For anyone that's listening, that's like, I have a life to get back to.
And we're improving it for them, Jimmy. That's what they want. These tips, I think, if they're here.
But they've got other things to do. Okay, I think vulnerability is a need. I don't know if everyone would agree with that, but I think vulnerability is a need. Now, here's one of my biggest problems. I think the majority of men think that vulnerability is like crying about like I don't know. What do you think? Where's the disconnection between what vulnerability actually is and what most men think it is, especially like manly men?
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak from the manly man experience. That's not really my forte, but I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, that men worry that vulnerability is like stuff that makes them unsexy. Like it's being weak. It's being like, here's my neck. Here's the chopping block. That's what they think vulnerability is.
But what's an example of it? What do they think it actually... I think that they think
like
it's
rolling over
crying.
For the things that are important to them.
Maybe.
No? Yeah. I don't know. Help me out. What do men think? I don't really know.
I think people help us out. I think that manly men, I think that when I say vulnerability, I think they hear like crying in a Hallmark movie.
Okay.
They think that vulnerability is like snuggling up on the couch and like crying with my wife watching a Hallmark movie.
Okay.
Which isn't vulnerability. Like that's just not what it is.
You're saying they think vulnerability is the things that we kind of think of as feminine qualities. Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. I think that they think, yes, that's exactly what it is. Vulnerability to them is anti-man.
Yes.
In their opinion.
And it's
whereas
not.
vulnerability for me is simply, getting to know each other's inner world. Like I want to being vulnerable. It's like what I said earlier. I have a manly example
if you want.
Oh,
I have a manly example of vulnerability for Frank. Wake up, Frank. You're going to like this one. If my partner says, "Hey, that thing that you just did, that made me really upset and angry." That's vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I give Frank another vulnerable? Okay.
Please do.
Frank.
He's listening now.
When you make a bid for sexual connection, I don't know if don't let the word bid throw you off. I mean, it's
we're not on the option block here. Yeah.
It's late at night and you are thinking, boy, would it be nice to get some.
Yeah.
And you do something, whatever that is, whether that's you touch her shoulder, you start massaging her, you start kissing her neck, whatever it is. Or you just say like, hey, Sharon, you feeling any frisky? whatever it is.
Yeah,
you're
I'm only
being
laughing
vulnerable
because of course that's Frank's woman's name is Sharon. Yeah, okay. But that's vulnerability.
That's vulnerability. You're doing something. You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
You see how that's being vulnerable.
Yes. Or hey,
you're exposing yourself figuratively,
right now. Exposing.
Physically.
Right. Figuratively exposing yourself. Someone saying. A man saying, "I feel so frustrated right now." That's vulnerable.
That's vulnerable. That's exactly. And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
People think it's something it's not. So,
right. Crying at
what did I say?
Movies. I love it.
I said relationships simply don't work when one person is completely numb or emotionally distant. So Yeah, I love those examples of like you're being vulnerable and you don't even realize it. Here's a way that you can be vulnerable. Let's say that your dad has just found out he has cancer, and you're talking to your wife about it, and you're like really upset, and you're like, I'm scared that he's going to die. That's vulnerability. Like you're showing your inner world. You're showing her your heart. Like, this is what my heart is feeling.
Yeah.
I'm scared I'm going to lose my dad.
Yeah.
The opposite of vulnerability is I'm just going to stay walled off. I'm not going to feel my feelings. I'm not going to express my feelings.
Yeah.
I don't want to have feelings because they make me uncomfortable. So I'm just not going to have them.
And it can be hard for men to receive vulnerability. If I come to you
Absolutely.
and I say, I'm scared that what did you say? My grandpa's going to die of cancer. Is that?
Yeah. Father, but whatever.
Or father. If I came to you and said, listen, I'm such a good listener tonight, Jimmy. Dang it.
It's fine. It's fine.
If I came to you and said, I'm scared that my father's going to die of cancer, as a man, that can be kind of hard for you to receive someone else's vulnerability too.
It's very hard. We have to learn how to receive that vulnerability because when she comes to you and says, I'm scared about whatever. I'm scared that this is... We can so easily, as a man, as a fixer, we can so easily be like, well, don't worry about that.
Ugh,
But that didn't help her at all. That doesn't validate her feelings. That's just like, see, you think, oh, I'm helping her because like I'm telling her, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. And sure, there's an element of where in life we shouldn't just be constantly worried. But if your partner is genuinely upset about something, we shouldn't just dismiss that aside. Like, oh, well, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Here, it's problem solved.
I have another magical sentence. If you guys
I
want.
love your magical sentences.
It's like if someone's coming to you with vulnerability, and you're like, I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to act. You can. So let's say they say, hey, this is kind of hard to talk about, but I'm scared that my dad's going to pass away. Like, he's in the hospital. It's not going well. You can just say, what's that like? That's it. What's that like?
Oh my gosh.
That's it. You're just inviting them to share a little bit more. You don't actually know how to respond. Just ask questions, man. What's that like?
You know, Brene Brown, I don't know if it's one of her TED Talks on vulnerability. I think she has a super popular one. So check that out on YouTube. Yeah. I watched it a long time ago. I'm surprised it like popped into my head. Yeah. But she has like a good thing on like empathy and vulnerability where she has this like, I don't know, drawing or something. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially just when someone's being vulnerable with you and you want to be empathetic to what they're feeling, you don't necessarily need to say much. Like what you just said, it can be very short, but the goal is that you're just sitting with them.
Yeah.
Like I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I'm here for you. I'm not dismissing. I'm not telling you, well, stop, don't worry about that. Stop worrying about that. It's silly to worry about that. I'm sitting with you and I want to understand what you're going through. That's empathy.
It says
through your lens.
Your vulnerability does not scare me. I'm listening, you know?
Your feelings aren't too much for me.
Yeah.
How many times do I need to tell you, Frank? Tell your wife that eventually. So throw it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier when we were talking about pride, but I wrote down to treat each other as equals in the relationship. So you're not the judge of their feelings on either way. The women or the men, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your time is not more important than them. You are not more important than them. And if something is important to them, it should be important to you.
And that's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do, no.
I thought of myself as a very good, very humble person and had no idea that I was, very guilty of a lot of those things, of a lack of humility. I thought that I knew more. I thought that I knew what my partner needed to do. It's easy to fall into that and not realize it.
Yep. The other thing I wanted to mention is when it comes to humility for me is the ability to admit your mistakes and to admit that I'm capable of unintentionally hurting you.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge.
Please say that again. To admit that I'm capable of unintentionally
hurting you. Imagine wrapping your brain around that. I mean, if both partners actually said that you know what? I'm admitting to you that I'm capable of unintentionally hurting you.
Yeah.
I mean, that opens up some sphere of environment where like I
accountability, right?
Accountability.
That's what it opens up. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So anyways.
Which can be healing in a relationship where you feel like somebody maybe isn't taking their behavior into, taking accountability for that.
Yeah. So having said that, the last thing I wrote down is that we should at least want to identify and advocate for our own specific needs, because when we don't, I'm thinking about people pleasers and anxious hearts here, but this applies to avoidant attachment
yes,
too.
they are also pretty rough at advocating for their actual needs. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. But when we don't advocate for our needs, I just think that the odds are that it's going to be disastrous for our relationships.
Yeah. And remember too, that nobody's going to do that for us. We're the only one who can actually tell other people what it is that we need and want.
Yeah. Jillian Trekkie also has a quote that I'll butcher, where she says, like, nobody talks about the courage of leaving relationships that aren't toxic or abusive. They're just not, it's just not right for you.
Wow. Yeah. That's it. Man, she's smart.
And that's so hard.
Yeah, just saying.
I love that.
But yeah.
I think about that every time I'm like, man, she is so smart.
I was smart like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
I just love that. Like, nobody talks about that courage, because I'm not saying it's easy to leave abusive relationships. In some ways, it's harder because there's a trauma bond going on, and we're not going to go into all the subconscious reasons why you can't get out of your abusive relationship.
Yeah,
even though you should, but we understand how difficult that can be. But it's also really difficult to leave relationships that just aren't.
Yeah, they're
good
just not
for
fitting
you.
the bill. Ugh,
yeah,
that's
because
tough.
then you're like, well, it's not like it's toxic, like, so then you stay longer than you should, because you're like, maybe it can get better, but it's just not a good fit because of these big time. Yeah. And sometimes it's because we didn't appropriately identify, understand, or advocate for these needs.
Yep. What's the thing I just said the other day on it was a story, it was a quote that I ran across, and I feel terrible because now I don't remember what page that was, but the quote's still up. By the time people hear this, it won't be. Somebody was saying though, like, hey, like, if you never spoke up about this thing that you wanted or needed, you can't villainize your partner for that.
Yeah.
For not telling them. Yeah. So that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. It was probably our longest episode, but I hope that somebody got some enjoyment out of it. Here's the last thing I wanted to say. We knew this would be long for like the 7 people that are still listening, but we know a lot of this stuff overlaps. But like, sometimes we feel like we're repeating ourselves over and over again, but at the same time, we love reiterating this to ourselves. There's some things that we should like consistently reiterate to ourselves that are super important in our relationships.
Yeah.
So if you feel like we're saying the same things over and over, 1, we're sorry, and 2, it's because it's so important in our relationships.
And I don't know about you, but I find sometimes it takes me 20 times of reading something before I realize I do that. That's actually something I need to work on. So that's what we're trying to do for you guys, not annoy you or put Frank to sleep.
And you know what? If you have some better material, please email me. I'm always open to.
I love messages. I love feedback on the podcast. Please keep messaging me about that on Instagram. Is the best place to get a hold of me.
It's so sweet.
Anxious Hearts Guide. Jimmy, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Jimmy on Relationships on all the handles. TikTok,
all the handles. Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube now.
Easy. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, cool. We're everywhere. What's that? Everywhere you want to be.
Yeah, everywhere you want to be.
We are there.
Anyways, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah,
Ricky and I are going to now chat for 20 minutes about all the things that we liked and disliked about
and
this
it'll
episode.
probably be better than the episode, and nobody gets to hear it.
Yeah, and you're missing it.
Dang it. We'll release the B-reels someday, maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.